Aloha and welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure, coming to you from Waikiki Beach, just above St. Augustine's by the Sea Catholic Church. In fact, just above the altar. It's kind of a sad day here in Waikiki. We've had nothing but 2 months of quality surf, and suddenly my daughter has come to visit us, and now the surf went flat. So we're going to still paddle out after we do this show, but coming to you from Waikiki Beach. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Woznick Adventure.
Welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. Kickstart that engine and roll thunder with the pack. Explore the grittiness of manly spirituality. Gain traction in the virtues. Soup up your spiritual engine by turning adversity into adventure. Now here's Bear Woznick. Let's ride.
Aloha and welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. We have a great guest today, Conor Galagher. He's going to be talking to us about his books on fathering and on family. But I wanted to start. The Well-Ordered Family is actually the title of his newest book. He's also the CEO of Tan Books, which is one of my favorite book publishing companies. They publish the coolest books, and sometimes they have this kind of leatherette feeling to them, and they're just awesome books. But I want to start out by saying this. I remember moving from Santa Cruz, California to Waco, Texas. And I was in a boring junior in high school. I was a junior in high school, spring of my junior year. And I had just had, I think it was probably, I don't know, country fried steak or something like that with gravy on it, stuff I'd never heard of before. And I'd had some of those potato nuggets and stuff. And I was kind of in a food coma. And I went to my social studies class, and it was like that blah 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 thing you hear from on the Charlie Brown shows of the teacher, and I was just kind of like and I just zoned out on her, and then suddenly it was definitely the Holy Spirit. I didn't know that at the time, but I had this epiphany come over me that someday I could be a father, that I could be involved in bringing a person into being that would live forever. And it became the most profound part, really, of my life. In fact, I remember a couple years later, 3 years later, when I really had a deep conversion to Jesus. And because I was so on fire for the Lord, everyone kept saying, well, you should be a priest, you should be a priest, you should be a priest. And so I felt compelled to follow up on that and see what the Lord's will was. And I remember I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where my daughter lives right now, the daughter who's visiting us. And I was on Monte Sol, up above them, up on the mountain there, looking across at Monte Luna. They're like twin mountains. I was there discerning with a seminary whether I should become a priest. And it was just a real challenging because I wanted to be a father, but there was so much around me saying, you should be a priest. And I sat up on that mountain. I know this is kind of weird to say. Hope you can buy into this. And I prayed for an hour. I had fasted for several days, and I prayed for an hour. God, what do you want me to do? Because I want to do your will, whatever it is. As hard as it is to serve you, it's harder not to. So if you want me to be a priest, I'll be a priest. And then it was like the Lord whispered to me, well, what do you want? And then the scripture verse came to me, if you surrender yourself to God's will, he will give you the desires of your heart. And that means he'll plant it in your heart, and then I'll then actually help you to realize those desires. And it was like the Lord said, well, what do you want? And it was like in my heart, I want to be a father. And then something pretty cool happened, because as I was about to go down the hill, this young man came up. His name was Michael. I remember his name. He'd hiked up the hill too. It's quite a little bit of a hike. And he said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm here praying to God. And he said, well, who are you praying to? And I said, to Jesus. And he said, I just read a book, Miracles by C.S. Lewis, and I've given my life to Jesus. I don't know any Christians. And I said, God, if you're real, bring a Christian to the top of this mountain, and I'll climb that mountain 12 times. This is my 12th time. And so we sat down and we prayed, and it was as if his prayers just confirmed what God had spoken to me. And I prayed for him, and that's the last I'd ever seen of him. But from that moment, from that mountaintop, I knew that I knew that I knew that I knew that I wanted to be married, that it was God's will for me to be married and have children. Well, we have Conor Galagher with us here today. He's the CEO of Tan Books, and he and his wife have 16 children. And one of his newest books is called The Well-Ordered Family. And I was just thinking how much I wish I had this book. All my children are adults now. How much I wish I had this book when I was a young father. So this is going to be very practical wisdom and heart-filled wisdom. So tune in, all men and women tune in today. Connor, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bear. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
When do you do your writing?
Early morning, man. Like, before anyone wakes up. And I go through spurts of writing sprees, I guess, where I'll wake up at 4:30 or 5, and then I'll try to get my cup of coffee. I try to say prayers for about 20, 30 minutes. So let's say I got up at 5, and at 5:30 I'm writing. And I'm
Yeah.
just sitting there on my couch, in the living room because I want my wife to be able to sleep in, and the little kids come downstairs somewhere between 6:30 and 7. So I will get at least an hour, hour and a half most mornings. But there's also times like when the baby, like we have a baby if the baby's nursing, it's pretty good because Ashley gets the baby, nurses, and like baby just lays in the bed with her for, another hour or two or whatever. But like our baby Monica just recently stopped nursing, so she's getting up at 6 o'clock, and so I hear her, I go get her, and so my writing is like cramped right now until so there's like a window where mom's not taking care of the baby and the baby's not old enough to sleep in, and so it's little Monica's ruining my writing,
What a beautiful
but
name. What a beautiful
that's the
name,
way it
Monica.
goes.
But to me, every real man gets up at that hour because there's
Mhm.
stuff to do. That to me, that's the sacred hour. When you get up
Yeah, yeah, it is.
before the family gets up, you carve out that hour, starting off with that at least, like you said, that 20 minutes of prayer.
Yeah,
Every real man gets up like that. I don't know
yeah.
how you can be a man and not we say in Hawaii kuleana. So, but now your time is getting more compressed, but the Lord has a way of expanding time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I find, and weird things happen. Like the other night, like I had this weird nightmare and I woke up at 3 a.m., laid there for 10 minutes, I'm like, forget this, I'm up, right? So I get up and I was going to sit down and read, but then I felt compelled to I'm kind of obsessed these days with the Song of Songs and scripture.
I love that book. Just,
Yeah, yeah, I
oh,
think it's like the greatest thing ever produced by human beings, but that's a whole
yeah.
nother episode. But so I was going
Oh,
to
we
write.
will do another episode when that comes out.
Let's do it, man. Anytime I'll talk about Song of Songs forever. But so I decided to I just read. It's only 6 pages in scripture. It's like 4,100 words, something like that. It's real short. And writing, I just said, okay, let's read this cover to cover without any interruption. I don't have my commentary books. I'm not going to be taking notes. Just like read it contemplatively, which took me over an hour. But it was just a real slow read. So, sometimes if I'm up in the morning, like the spirit moves me, don't worry about writing right now. Just pray, just contemplate.
Yes,
So
yes.
you never know what's really going to happen at 5 a.m. or, in
Hmm.
this regard, it was like 3 a.m.
Hmm.
But it was mystical. It was a glorious, glorious
Yes.
hour. All I did. And I could not have, my point is, Bear, it couldn't have happened at 9 a.m. It couldn't have. It
That's
had to be.
that's why it's sacred because you're getting up and you're carving out that time. It's time for starting with prayer and then maybe the inspiration to write, but giving that, carving out that space so God's voice can be heard, so He can have that moment with you. But I remember as a young Christian, Song of Solomon just captivated me with the allegorical elements of it. It's just so beautiful. I think I took notes and notes and notes and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. So we're really looking forward to having you talk about that with us.
Yeah.
But
So, but just real quick,
yeah,
like as tied to dads, right? So if you're going to write in the morning or wake up and pray in the morning, you have to get to bed at a reasonable time. And like as my kids have all gotten older, and I got a ton of teenagers. I mean, I got three grandkids now, Bear, right? So I mean, it's kind of crazy.
what's your youngest and what's your oldest
So my
son?
oldest is 23. He's got one kid. My second oldest is 22. She's got two kids. The second one's on the way, and then my youngest is like 9 months. So
That's a
it's a big span. But point is like I got like so many teenagers, and they're out living their life, and they come home late, and they get
Mhm.
they just like emotionally they wake up at 9 p.m., and they want to talk and they want to visit. And I'm like, dude, I've been up since 4:30. I got to go to bed. And so it's actually getting a little harder because my older kids
Mm.
are keeping me up
Yeah,
longer,
they're
but it's
late night
also
people.
wonderful to spend
Yeah.
time with them, you know? So it's a challenge.
It's a challenge. It's for me, it's kind of funny. I think I've become kind of like I kind of tend to go to bed around the time the sun sets and get up before the rooster crows. And we do have a few feral roosters out here in
Oh,
Waikiki.
cool.
And so or the myna birds wake us up real early too. But yeah, you're being stretched at both ends. We're talking with Conor Gallagher. He's the CEO of a family of 16 and also of 10 Publishing, one of my favorite publishers. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Wozniak adventure. We're going to get into his book, The Well-Ordered Family, and how I wished I'd had this when my all my children were young. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Wozniak adventure. Schoolofmanliness.com is a place for men of grit and grace to join together to inspire, to encourage, and to challenge each other to grow in manly virtue. Members receive morning man meditations, a monthly curriculum that is rich with audio, video, and written content, and a trail guide to help you map out your new trajectory. Many of our members lead their sons through this same curriculum. Your membership gives you access to both the Man Cave, which is our non-Facebook type community, and the School of Manliness at schoolofmanliness.com. Become a member at schoolofmanliness.com. Deep Adventure Ministries is grateful to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for underwriting the Bear Wozniak adventure on EWTN. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union provides car loans, mortgages, SBA loans, and depository accounts nationwide, as well as 24-hour support. Go to deepadventure.com to find their link, or go to NotreDameFCU.com. Mahalo to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for making the Bear Wozniak adventure possible. My newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone?, has hit the top 5 in Christian books for a good reason. It's because men are searching for traction and a trail guide to live out the unique calling and the gifts that they were born with, that each man individually is factory loaded with by God. Paul said, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, do all things in love. Finally, here is a book that talks with men the way men talk with each other. Just plain old straight shoot. By the way, Mama Bears, this is your chance to get this message to your men. Go to schoolofmanliness.com or anywhere books are sold. 12 Rules for Manliness. Where have all the cowboys gone?
This is a warning. The Bear Wozniak adventure is dangerous. The radical change Bear challenges you to is not for wimps. Change this station now to a soft rock station before it's too late. You've been warned. Now, here is Bear Wozniak.
Aloha, welcome back to the Bear Wozniak adventure. I want to invite all you mama bears out there, and of course all the men out there. My book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? It's done really well. It's gone as high as number 5 with Christian books for men. That means that, a lot of men don't really enjoy reading. So if it can capture that kind of attention, it's probably because it's talking to men the way men talk with each other. It's just kind of grit and grace, practical wisdom for men. And we use a lot of Louis L'Amour's. Well, Louis L'Amour, the great Western novelist. I don't know, I've got 105 of his novels right here next to my desk. Uh, the cardinal virtues were something that he stressed so much, and he was very formative in my life and a lot of men's lives. The Bishop of Syracuse told me the other day he has all 105 of Louis L'Amour's westerns too. So we use some of his quotes, and we sometimes use a little bit of the cowboy theme, but it's just practical wisdom for men in these 12 different areas of a man's life. So, Mama Bears, it might be up to you to order this book. You can get it on the EWTN catalog or our site, schoolofmanliness.com, or Amazon is a great way to get the books to them too. So get this into the hands of the young men who are going maybe to college, going away to college. Get it to the men in your lives. And men, you're allowed to get the book too. We have with us today Conor Galagher. He is the CEO of Tan Publishing, one of my favorite publishers. They publish some of the coolest books, and he is the author of The Well-Ordered Family, and he's the CEO of a family of 16. Can I ask you about this? I'll tell you what, Connor, when I had a CPA, I moved my office into my home so I could be closer to my family. I had a 3-car garage, and it was just stacked full of, was where I did my work. No room for the car. I remember once uh, working with a client, and my youngest child, I began to smell something really funny in the office, and my youngest baby had crawled under the desk between my client and I. And I remember also, Connor, trying to get my 2 youngest sons up into school or to church. We had a pool in the back, and there was a jacuzzi. And I would get in there with them at 7 in the morning, and I would put a little shampoo on their head, and I'd get them shampooed and dip them in the jacuzzi, throw them in the pool, and they'd get off and get dressed. And I remember one time I was a little bit late, and they were out there already. I went out at 7 in the morning or whatever time it was, and there was foam bubbles filled the whole backyard. You couldn't see the
Oh
pool, you
my
couldn't
God.
see them. And so I really do need to understand how would you do how to create a well-ordered family. Can you go through the steps? Especially this area of systems and metrics. But can you walk us through? There's vision, unity, systems, metrics, relationships, discernment.
Yeah. So, you got a philosopher in you, Barry. I believe that this is the natural law, and I've just applied that to family life. I'm convinced that if somebody's going to pursue excellence in any area of life, whether you're like David Goggins and an ultra marathoner, or if you're Louis L'Amour writing great Western books, or you're a capital venturist, or, a venture capitalist, or you're, a Catholic publisher. I think that the rules of success are always the same. And so the first is vision. You have to have, Scripture says if the people have no vision, they will perish. I mean, you have to have a vision of where you're going, and that's the ability to kind of see what's not yet there. Okay, sight is like I see this microphone, but vision is seeing that which is not there yet. Like a visionary has apparitions, right? So you gotta articulate that, whether it's mission statements, vision statements. So I have tools that help families create vision statements for themselves, 10-year portraits of like what do they want God to see in their family 10 years from now,
Wow.
things like that. Like I really want families to envision, like visualization's a very powerful thing. Like anybody
Yes.
who's really good at any sport or anything, they know how to close their eyes and like envision something, and then their body does it better.
Hmm.
So vision. Okay. Second is unity. Jim Collins, the best business author, of all time, says that 1% of success in business is vision, 99 is unity around that vision. So you have to get the team in place, right? I was watching some of your clips on your website right before I joined you, and I was watching you do like these training videos with this, holding
Oh,
up the wind on your surfboard. It was amazing. I have no idea how you do all that, but you have to get in sync. If you're not like in sync, I imagine it just collapses, right? So what is that unity with family members? Well, I think it should be meetings. Every other group of individuals has meetings. In sports, you call them practice. In symphony, you call them rehearsals. In business, we call them meetings. So I have business meetings. I have agendas that help them do that. And there's rules of a good meeting and a really bad meeting. So you don't
yeah.
alienate.
Oh, you could have some bad meetings if it becomes
Yeah,
a gripe session or something like that, as opposed. But
yeah,
in that sense of unity, there has to be an ability to inspire trust in each other
yeah.
and to earn that trust. Uh, Knowing you're on the same page, going in the same direction, has got to help that.
Yeah, and so like you got to review your vision and like the different goals and things you have, which we'll get to. But just like you said, the main thing is this cannot become a discipline meeting for like
Yeah.
mom and dad beating up on the teenager. Discipline later, like that's another time. But
Hmm.
think about if you were in a business meeting with everybody and you just started like railing on your employee in front of everyone. That's just a bad leader. So there's a time and place for discipline. There's a time and place for communication. So
And what is the subject? Because I have a saying in business: I don't go to meetings, I only go to doings. If we're going to do something, I'll
Ah,
come. You know, uh, so is it for you to help discern what the ongoing vision is, or is it to develop an action
yeah.
plan, or is it for you to inspire them with values, or what is that about?
I'll give you an example. There's like one is what we call our weekly huddle. And
Mm,
that's Sunday night. There's no big spiritual thing here. It's like, okay, everyone, get out your cell phone. I want to see, we need to talk about the schedule this coming week because the logistics create stress. So we say, all
yes.
right, Monday, what's everybody got? Tuesday, what's everybody got? Oops, I forgot. I'm going out of town. Sorry, honey, I forgot to tell you. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a basketball game Wednesday night. Okay, I'll be there. Ooh, and you start, everyone goes
Excellent.
around just getting on the same page, man. That's so much of the stress is when your wife texts you. It's like, I told you you have to pick up the kids from soccer practice. Like, no, you
Okay.
didn't,
Well,
you
but
know?
that's a huge thing. I think one of the biggest things you don't realize as a parent is that you become a bus driver.
Yeah,
And I
I
and
know. Yeah.
when one of your kids gets old enough to be driving, that kind of helps. But I remember when things were maxing out in the early teenage before they could drive, I actually had one of my employees pick them up from school, take them to their tutoring. It's almost like you gotta off.
Yeah,
It's an organization just for your wife who's nursing a baby, and then at the same time the child needs to go to basketball practice, and you need to
I
show up.
know.
Yeah, so having that logistical. And
Yeah. So
we had a family of four, and it was overwhelming. So if you
overwhelming.
if you figured how to do it with a family of 16, we should listen to you.
Well, I mean, yeah, so that's one example of a meeting. Okay. And then I have a meeting that's more of like a heart to heart between spouses where you're saying, okay, what do you need from me this coming week? Again, I think good planning and good communication is like, don't assume that the person knows what's in your mind and heart and vice versa. So that's
Mhm.
that's but moving on to you want to move on to some
Excellent.
metrics?
Excellent. No, but excellent. So you have a conversation with your wife once a week. Like this is a sacred time. You and I are going to have a conversation about what's going on with what certain children might be in crisis, or there might be something important
Yeah.
coming up. But really,
Yeah. So one of the big things I say, Bear, is I'll say, what about this coming week is scaring you, and what can I do to help you this coming week with that? Like that's a simple question. Like, what are you getting
wow.
worried or anxious about, and vice versa. And a lot of times the answer is nothing. But she's kind of it can sometimes be like, Wednesday is getting out of control. Okay, well, now I don't have to think about 7 days, Bear. I can think
It's just
about
Wednesday.
4 hours on Wednesday where I
Yeah.
can be a superhero. So I just became a way better husband because I got focused on a very specific thing. But I wouldn't have known if I don't ask.
Cindy and I, we have this every morning. We have coffee together. And we start out by listening to the gospel, unless we go to mass first, but then afterwards we'll have that conversation about the gospel, and it's very beautiful because we'll look at each other. I just love her so much, so I'll reach across, maybe kiss her hand or something, and just have that eye to eye kind of conversation. But at some point, usually towards the end, we say, "Tell me about your day," or we talk about logistics.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's not a business meeting, but it's like we got the pest control person coming and that sort of thing. But there also needs to be that time of just intimacy. Like, let's take a time out and look at each other, and and
yeah.
and
I think people are. I think I'm amazed how people don't do that. And so I just try to give a little bit of structure to it. And if the kids are involved, different dynamic than just husband and wife. So I also recommend like, an annual meeting where you're really going over annual
love
goals
this.
and things, so annual goals. And I have quarterly meetings where it's quarterly goals. And we don't always do it. Like I'm a very imperfect implementer, but that's just the unity section. That's just meetings. That's
But
actually
it's
not a huge part of this. So, but
we're talking with Conor Gallagher, the CEO of Tan Publishing, one of my favorite publishers, and the new book, The Well-Ordered Family. I know that verse struck me when I was so young. I think it was when I first really converted to the Lord when I was 19. I was reading the book of Habakkuk. Can you imagine that? But in there,
mm,
he says, write this vision down in words that are big enough so the one who's reading can run while he's reading. And it taught me to write things down. And I always take that time just before the holidays to sit down, and I filter through all the things, business and otherwise in my life, my goals, physical, every area, financial, and
yeah.
then take that time to really listen to Cindy because she has such insight, just amazing insight into my life. And then we kind of map that out. We're talking with Conor Gallagher. We're going to be right back. We're going to start talking about This is stuff I think men really are going to dig. We're going to talk about systems and metrics, how to know we're on track. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Wozniak adventure. Go to schoolofmanliness.com and subscribe to our weekly email to receive video YouTube links of the Bear Wozniak radio show, as well as the Spirit of Adventure with Bear and Cindy TV show, which, by the way, is filmed in the tropics, as well as our manly evangelistic YouTube shorts. Go to schoolofmanliness.com. People love our EWTN TV show, Long Ride Home with Bear Wozniak. Thanks to you, the show has won 4 different Tally Awards. And now, instead of waiting each week for the next episode to air, you can actually binge watch our show and even share it with your friends when you go to deepadventure.com and join the Mama Bears or the Man Cave. Along with all the other benefits, you get total access to all the seasons of our aired episodes, plus instant access to episodes that won't even air for several months. Long Ride Home with Bear Wozniak, a great way to communicate the gospel in a gritty enough way that even tough men will stop and watch at deepadventure.com. Here is a YouTube video short, which is based on an excerpt from my newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? Personal creed and code. Cowboys were perceptive and decisive. Part of their ease in making decisions was because they knew what they stood for, and they also knew how to make a stand. They knew what they believed, and they lived by a personal creed and the cowboy code. They were quick to act when needed. They weren't clever and they weren't conniving. Everything was just clear to them. To them, it was simple to understand what needed to be done, even though the doing of it may not be easy. When push came to shove, they could not be shoved.
Be the kind of man that when he gets out of bed in the morning, the devil says, "Oh no, he's up." Go to deepadventure.com and invite Bear to speak.
Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Wozniak Adventure. We want to invite the men to go to schoolofmanliness.com and join the other men there. We have a man cave community there. It's a non-Facebook community of men. It's not part of Facebook. We have our own community right there within our website. And so daily we're posting inspirational thoughts for each other, or like yesterday, Bill had back surgery. We've been praying for him. Or there's a couple of young men that are discerning whether they're going into the priesthood or what God's plan is for their lives. And so we're all just a bunch of knuckle draggers kind of trying to work our way through life. But it reminds me of the cave of Adullam, King David's cave, where all the men, kind of like the misfits, kind of got together and they formed each other, and God formed them into the mighty men of valor. So that man cave community is very important. We have a lot of young men joining. In fact, we have a couple bull riders and a few fire jumpers that have joined lately. And so we have this great mixture of the older men are being inspired by the younger men, and the younger men gaining this wisdom from the older men. But then we also have a School of Manliness. It's almost a 3-year curriculum in there, where every Saturday morning, Brad Rushmore, our ramrod, the young man who's the ramrod for the School of Manliness, sends you out that week's curriculum. So you can get up early in the morning on Saturday and work your way through the content, whether it's written, some of it's audio, video, and some of it is self-assessment and goal setting. You can work yourself through that every Saturday morning. And then every morning you get a text from us, a short text, a sentence from the Catholic Catechism. Just as we have a saying in the man cave, chew on it. It gives you just enough content. So we're working all the way through the Catechism so that you can Lectio Divina really on the Catechism, 1 or 2 sentences at a time. You get that every morning before you even get up. So, and then we have the man cave Zoom calls once a month too. So we all hook up that way. So it's actually not a Zoom call. It's within our our website, we have that tool. So schoolofmanliness.com. We need you members to come and contribute to the content. Come and be part of our man cave. We have with us today Conor Galagher. He's the CEO of Tan Books, Tan Publishing, which has so many great books. And he is public, and his newest book is The Well-Ordered Family. And you have another book that's even newer than that. That's a companion to this book,
Yeah.
Conor. What's that title?
Yeah, it's called The Architect. And actually, that's a perfect segue into talking about systems. You ready for
Okay,
that?
yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So what does the word architect mean? In the Greek, it means chief builder, like an arc and then a technician, technology, chief builder.
Techno.
So I'm saying to parents, you need to be the chief builder of your family ecosystem. So there is a victimization mindset, Bear, especially with men. They're like, well, all the kids have cell phones, so my kid does too. And so we kind of like surrender our kids out of being a victim. So I'm saying you have to be extremely intentional about building the systems. People say, how do you raise 16 kids? I say, I don't. I manage environments. Okay.
Mm.
So you have to look at each major part of your life. And I have something called the STREP test. STREP, the social environment, technological environment. And if you don't think that's an environment, then you're crazy. Uh, Recreational environment, religious environment, educational environment, and professional environment, right? So recreational might be like the baseball team that they're on. Education's obvious. Professional environment might the kids start working at the bagel shop when they're 15. That's a whole new environment that mom and dad have to be very particular about. So I have tools that help you like look at the pros and cons of each of these environments. Okay, social, technological, religious, recreational, educational, and professional. And you need to think about what's the strengths and weaknesses of each one of those in your kid's life. How can you make improvements to each one? And when you build that as the architect, you're the chief builder of this whole ecosystem that's feeding itself, feeding each other, then you can give your kids incredible autonomy. And if they
Mm.
live, it's like if you let your little kid play, if you go to a parking lot for them to play, you got to watch them every second. And you have to keep telling them, no, 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 you have to. But if you take them into a great fenced in backyard with a big fence, you can let them run wild. So you need to take that mindset to their whole world. And it's mom and dad's responsibility from the time they're little to build that world because they can't build it. That's not what they're there for. You're there to build that world and take ownership of that world and have the guts to change a part of that world if it needs to be changed. So that's what I call a macro system. That's the macro system. The micro systems, like how do you get the dishes done? How do you pay the bills? Blah, 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 blah. That's what people, those are important, but Bear, it ain't anything compared to the
Well,
macro
one
system.
of the things about the microsystems, though, is when you have those in place, you don't have to keep making new rules every day. You've got
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
you've got to basically like a policy. This is how we do this.
Yeah,
And
we
when
got the
people say
chore chart and all that kind of
you
stuff for
do,
sure.
you do,
Oh
and then
yeah, it's in the book. I mean, we got like a picture of our chore charts in the book. I mean, you have to, or you go bonkers. You go
when
crazy.
Cindy and I have a sailboat. We sail a beautiful uh, sailboat out on the Virgin Islands, and we have systems. And it's also like when we tandem surf together. I can say one sentence to her, and that's a whole paragraph. And we're on the
Yes.
boat when things happens, reef the sails, and we know what Cindy's going to do, and I know what I'm going to do. And so having this structure isn't confining; it's liberating, and it's also it just it and when people want to complain, you say, "Well, that's the policy. You don't have to take it too personally." But I
Well,
was
let me
thinking
build
about
on
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Let me
Go
build
ahead.
on that real quick, Bear, because I have something called a digital policy builder. And I got a webinar I'm teaching. It's called a master class next week, and I'm teaching parents how to build a digital policy. So this is the ultimate
Wow,
system you're talking about.
wow.
So on my phone, it's a little example, but on my phone, there's something called the death alarm, and it goes off at 9 p.m. And if all of my kids do not have all their technology downstairs, iPhone, iPad, laptop, if it's not downstairs docked in the proper place at 9 p.m., they're dead meat. So my alarm goes off. They better beat the phone downstairs. It's a policy, right? And so we have things like digital policies where we say, I'm sorry, kids, we've made this decision. You can't break the policy. Otherwise, you're playing referee and making up rules every single day, and you'll go
Yeah.
bonkers. Parents do it, man. They don't have any systems. They very
Yeah.
few
Everything's
parents.
on the fly. And it's also the mother and the father can be in conflict. Well, I'll go ask dad, and well, dad said I could
Yeah.
do this. So if you have that policy, it's just so much better. And you kind of referred to something. I think it was a G.K. Chesterton said something about walls. I think he said something about the walls of orthodoxy let good things run wild.
Oh, there
And
you go. I
yeah,
love that.
and
Wow.
I think it was
Wow.
GK. I always get CS and GK mixed up. They so much, but you know what it is that's my biggest problem as a father is letting my kids go. I
Yeah.
want to be. I'm always kind of micromanaging them, and setting those policies in place kind of opens up the door. But I'm
Yeah.
so
It's a
so hyper vigilant when it comes to them, even now as adults, that it's a problem.
Yeah. You want to move on to metrics real quick?
Yeah, let's go to, well, yeah, we got about a minute of this segment, so we'll introduce the concept and then we'll really go into
All
it
right.
deeper.
Every single person that's highly successful in life, and anything, martial arts, surfing, doesn't matter, accounting, whatever, doesn't matter. All the stuff that you're good at. What they have in common is they learn how to measure things with precision, right? You get
Yes,
real serious about something, you start measuring, whether it's how many steps you take a day to lose weight, your calorie intake, your macros,
all of
whatever it is.
those. Yeah.
So, mom and dad, simple question. If you're serious about becoming really good at this parenting thing, what are you measuring? What are you measuring?
What are you measuring? What are you measuring about yourself first? What are you measuring about yeah, tell us. We got
Yeah.
another minute before we
Well,
go. Sorry.
yeah. So measuring, what do we measure? So I have a scorecard that we hang on our wall. And what we're measuring, how many times a week we pray the family rosary. We have a goal to do four because seven's unrealistic for us. So pray the rosary together as a family 4 times a week. I had my body fat percentage on the scorecard because I had type 2 diabetes and I had to
Now,
lose a
is
ton
it
of weight.
is
I
now
had to
now
get it
is this
back.
a scorecard the whole family sees, or is this
Yes, yeah, but I put my own personal thing on there just so everyone saw it. I'm
leading
being
by leading by example? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And then you also have things like maybe you put your GPA on there if you're tracking that for your kids. Maybe you're putting screen time. Maybe you're putting how many times they get penalized for not doing their chores right. So you can decide the things to put on that, but you have to keep score so that you know how you're making improvements. And
It's
you
got
have
to
a
be measurable.
scorecard. You have a scorecard, and you just start tracking things to just hold yourself
It,
accountable.
And you know what? It's more than that, though. It makes it fun, really. I mean, like I've never worked out, and I guess I have. I've trained pretty hard, but mostly what I do is have fun. When I go surfing or I'm doing, I lifting. Cindy and I go tandem surfing. I'm lifting her. I just consider it all a game. So I've always kept score. Before there was, Fitbit, I had my Garmin watch, and I could track. Okay, I did 50 miles in the sand today. This week walking. I know I
Um,
did 4 hours of lifting, and to me it was a game. It's a way to keep score. And so as a family, it can be a real positive thing too. Of course, it gives you negative feedback, but instead of it being like that, did you measure up? It's like, yeah, I won that race.
exactly.
Do you do it by child then, by each member of the family, or how do you do it?
No, that's just too much. I try to keep it simple. We have I recommend people have four, maybe 3 or 4 items that you're tracking
Mm,
on
mm.
a quarterly basis. If it gets too much, you ain't gonna do it. And if it's one
Right,
or two, you're not gonna pay
right.
attention. So I just think there's a magic number of four, never more than seven. Never more than
Yeah,
seven. So
that's a
keep it
that
simple,
makes
stupid, you
that
know?
sounds good. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Wozniak Adventure. We're talking with Conor Gallagher, the CEO of Tan Publishing, and his newest book, The Well-Ordered Family. We'll be right back with the Bear Wozniak Adventure. Deep Adventure Ministries is grateful to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for underwriting the Bear Wozniak Adventure on EWTN. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union provides car loans, mortgages, SBA loans, and depository accounts nationwide, as well as 24-hour support. Go to deepadventure.com to find their link, or go to NotreDameFCU.com. Mahalo to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for making the Bear Wozniak Adventure possible. Announcing Spirit Adventure TV with Bear and Cindy. So many people, especially you mama bears, tell us we want more of Bear and Cindy together. Well, we're happy to announce our website, spiritofadventuretv.com, as well as our YouTube channel, Bear Woznick Spirit of Adventure, where you can watch Spirit of Adventure TV with Bear and Cindy. Join us where we live in the Hawaiian Islands or where we sail our boat, the Spirit of Adventure, in the Caribbean. Experience both adventure and serenity with us as we share our life together, as well as the joy and the wisdom of our faith. Go to spiritofadventuretv.com to find out more and subscribe on YouTube to Bear Woznick Spirit of Adventure. And join us, Spirit of Adventure with Bear and Cindy.
Are you still listening? I thought we warned you to change to an easy listening station. Well, you asked for it. Here is more of the Bear Woznick Adventure.
Aloha. We want to invite everybody to check out the TV show Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick. I talk about my newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, where have all the cowboys gone, and have all these Louis L'Amour quotes. But it's kind of strange because as I was moving, when we titled our TV show Long Ride Home, after we'd already filmed the first season, I was moving my Louis L'Amour Westerns around, and I realized I stole that title from one of Louis L'Amour Westerns, A Long Ride Home. But it's really cool content for you. It's all on Prime Video. EWTN airs it periodically, but all 4 seasons, 33 episodes, the last season filmed here in Hawaii, is all available to you there. And it's a great way for, I think, fathers and sons or families to watch and to learn. And I want to also remind people, the schoolofmanliness.com, one of the things that we're doing with that is as the fathers join, then the younger men that are like confirmation age or older, they can get their own login. They can't be part of the man cave, but they do get access to the School of Manliness. And so the father can have real conversations with their sons. You know, once a week, say Wednesday night or Saturday morning, you could have a conversation with your son. You can watch the videos together, the 5-minute clips, or listen to the Catholic cowboy priest, our friend out in Wyoming, his homilies, Father Bryce. And actually have a conversation saying, "Hey, son, what did you do today?" And he say, "Well, nothing, Dad." You can actually dig deep and lead your son through this 3-year curriculum on manliness. So speaking of manliness, we have with us today Conor Galagher. He's the CEO of Tan Publishing, and his newest book, The Well-Ordered Family. How do you find time in all of that to keep that cultivating that love relationship with your wife?
It's easier now than it used to be because the kids got older and they can babysit and we can get the hell out of Dodge, you know? And so that's a big part of it. And I would say like the people I feel sorry for the most, because it was hardest for us, is when, you had like 3 or 4 kids under the age of 5 or 6 or 7. I mean, you're just so outnumbered and you don't have any helpers.
Yeah.
And you might not have enough money to pay for the babysitters. And we didn't. We went like 4 years before we ever went on a date. You know what I mean? It was just awful. So it's just so probably longer than that. And we didn't do anything. Like we would never went on vacation. My wife left the country with me about a year ago for the first time in her life. So I mean, we've never, but my point is as the kids got older and we got built-in babysitters, it's like, let's get out of here. Let's go to dinner. Let's go to dinner. We go to dinner a lot. We have coffee every morning, like you talked about, every morning.
You do. Do you ever have pencil and paper with you when you're having coffee? Just curious.
No, probably should. I mean, other than when we have our family meetings total, but I haven't brought it to just us. I'm a list maker. I make lists about everything. I make lists about the lists I like to list. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So
it helps unclutter your mind and set a trajectory. It's common sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, I have in the past, but I probably should. So, we keep the marriage going. First of all, the kids know that it's parents first, spouses first before. They know that. And so, I think we do pretty good, but I'm like, we do it 10 times better, Bear, than I did in the early years. The early years, we didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't have the resources. And I was off in law school, and we were in DC, away from family and friends. It's hard. So I kind of know what a lot of young families go through. Like my son right now, he's 23, he's married, they got a great marriage and all, but he's working real hard, and it's like none of his friends are married yet. So the social life is a little bit
It totally
more
changes.
difficult.
Yeah, yeah. The moment you
So
have
yeah, and now like I'm only 46, but all of our friends are 56 or older. All of them because we were just ahead of the game in terms of what
right,
we.
right. The people that you can identify with, you know. I just remember
Yeah,
being, I remember the feeling being outnumbered. I know my son Shane, um, I learned with my kids when, if I was taking them into a grocery store or something, I right away put a toy in each of their hands so they wouldn't start grabbing stuff off the
yeah.
shelves.
It's
But you, I
hard.
was
It's
outnumbered
hard.
with two, with four. It was once you have more than four and you have only two parents, you're really outgunned because you only have, four hands to take care of four kids. So you
On
talk
that
about,
note, though,
yeah.
as soon as you get teenagers, it's mid-level management. And that's the
Hmm.
way you need to think about it. And you start delegating and you start entrusting and holding people accountable. But just like you manage a business with multi-level levels of management, that's what it gets like when you have teenagers. It truly gets easier. It
And and
truly gets easier.
and it's such a lesson for for what you would call your older siblings. It's a great place for them to learn, and to grow in
Oh
that in
yeah.
those
Oh
areas
yeah.
too.
They're tough. They're tough.
And a family of 16 is definitely would always be by all measurements be a large family, but families of 8, 10. I think my dad came from a family of 12, 11 or 12 siblings. That was more the norm. And so there definitely has to be an order to it. And I love that Catholic word order, doing it according to God's order. And when you do that, everything kind of makes sense and everything kind of, fits together. What do you talk about here when you talk about the area of understanding, not leveraging individual temperaments? I mean, if you have 16 different children, some of them may be very similar, but every one of them is very unique and in a unique stage in their life. How do you manage those relationships between them and you directly with each of them?
All right, here's the advice for parents that I say. Um, every morning when I'm praying, I try to go through the list and I say, okay, God, what does Aiden need from me today? All right, nothing came to me. What does Mary need from me today? What does Patrick need? And then boom, it hits me like a bolt of lightning. And it's like, whoa, I got to do this for Patrick,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And then you keep going down and you find usually it's just like one of them that like needs something from you. It's like God
Hmm.
spares you from having to deal with the others right then. And
Hmm.
now I realize, okay, I have to like manage these systems and kind of keep mid-level management and all these kinds of things. But my life has to stop and I have to help the kid who's in need right now. And then you're like
Yeah.
an eagle, been hovering and then shoo, swoops down. So you're not going to find out from God what your kids need or your spouse unless you ask them. So every day you need to have that little 5 minute habit of like running through the list. And I'm amazed what comes to me in prayer. So that's
Hmm.
how you get like
That's when it
in.
comes to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always prayer. It's not just driving around red lights. It's prayer. Thinking and praying are totally different activities.
And it's like the rosary. My wife and I always say the rosary. That's the last thing we do every night, and we dedicate a decade to each person. She had the for each area basically, and it's amazing what happens during that rosary when you go, oh,
Yeah.
I blew it there. I need to do that, or I need to back off here. I need to be more proactive there. For that person. And as
Yeah,
you
so you
pray
have
for
to have the
people,
systems in place and you have all that stuff, but there's no substitute for praying about each individual person in your family and asking God, what do they need from me today? And it's like in that real present moment. I mean, sometimes he doesn't tell me what they're going to need next week, but he says they need this today. And then I can focus because the family's functioning rather smoothly and I can really focus on the kid. So that's just a simple thing. But yeah, different personalities. Some are choleric, some are sanguine, some are phlegmatic, some are introverted, extroverted, however you want to phrase these things. But I think that in business, we've gotten really good at doing personal assessment tests to see what people's strengths and weaknesses are. And we know, like, if you're an artist, don't put them in a scientific job. And if you're a scientist, don't put them in an artist job, it just frustrates them. So a good employer puts them in places where they're likely to succeed. And mom and dad got to do the same thing with their kids. You gotta be creative and are attentive and set your kids up for success.
that's so well said. There's a scripture verse. Basically, when your children are young, while you're on your way with them, I always envision a father walking along a stream. For some reason, when I think of that scripture verse, instruct them in the way that they should go so that when they're older, they will not depart from it. Well, not every child needs the same instruction. It really takes that eagle eye look to say, okay, this is this child. I know this child, and I know the way that they should grow, different than the way that this one should go. I know my father was very good at speaking into my life that way, very, very profoundly. He could, how did you know that about me, Dad? Now that you've said it, I see it, right? You have that discernment into their lives.
Yeah, and so I've had times, Bear, when like I couldn't figure out what my kid needed because there's some personalities in my family that I have a harder time connecting with. It's just to be
Mhm.
frank, I mean, if you have 16 kids, you're bound to have one or two that, and it's not like I like them less. It's just like they're always a mystery to me.
Yeah.
I have phlegmatic kids, and I'm so not phlegmatic. It's hard for me to understand them. They're very gentle, very soft, easygoing, but they don't seem to have that initiative to get up and start stuff. They don't complain. They don't, they're just very quiet. And it's like, I want to shake them and say, tell me stuff, tell me. Um, so I have found that's an example of like the personality that I have a hard time dealing with. So what a great solution is to look at them and say, your personality kind of makes it hard for me to read. I need you, please tell me what you need from me, please, because I'm not guessing well. I don't feel like I'm doing
Well, that's a
everything you
great
need
way to
to
say to
do.
ask them. And we got to cut this short now, Connor. But I bet your wife has a lot of, my wife will just say things to me and I go, "How could I be so clueless?" She just sees things that I don't see. This has been one of the best conversations we've had on our show. This has just been really great. Conor Gallagher, the CEO of Tan Publishing, and also the author of the new book, The Well-Ordered Family. Where can they find you? I forgot to keep asking you that question. How can they find you?
Well, right now, check out on YouTube the Conor Gallagher Show. It's my podcast, and I talk a lot about family things. But then, of course, wellorderedfamily.com is where all of these systems and tools are. Wellorderedfamily.com. You can get all kinds of stuff for free, and yeah, I'm doing master classes and things like that. But
Oh,
there you
that's
go.
all. Oh, that's all. What do you do in your spare time between midnight and 1 a.m. when you have nothing else to do? Oh, that's when you sleep. We're talking with Conor Gallagher. Thank you, Conor. What a fast conversation that was. We have this tradition here where, the word ha means breath. And as God breathed into Adam and made him a living soul, and Jesus said, um, uh, breathed his spirit on his disciples. So here in Hawaii, the word aloha means to give, ha, to give breath. So may the breath of the Holy Spirit aloha you. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to the Bear Woznick Adventure. Find more manly conversation at the Bear Woznick Deep Adventure YouTube channel. Subscribe and ring the bell.